In this video, we're going to go over a live seller call. Let me show you exactly what happens. The very first question I asked them is, hey, are you still looking to sell that property? And then the video starts. Watch this.
And what y'all like for, find a single story house in my area, I would sell, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm probably going to be able to help you find a property, but let's talk about this one first. How much are you looking to get for it?
I don't know. I tried to sell it. My wife died 2 years ago of cancer.
Oh,
Or almost 3 years ago of cancer. I tried to sell it back then for $60,000, and people looked at me like I was nuts.
I bet.
I've got almost an acre of property,
It's
a
not worth
shed,
that.
and everything else, and people looked at me like I was nuts for trying to sell it for $60,000.
Wow. Well, I'm first and foremost sorry to hear about your wife.
We were
Absolutely.
together 27.
Wow. What's the secret, real quick?
She was the backbone of everything, and her parents stayed together, and she said, "I ain't divorcing. I ain't doing it."
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. That's awesome. Well, in
we
regards
got
to
your
the,
problems with talking. We got your problems with talking. That's it.
oh yeah, that comes with it.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see. I mean, in regards to the property, yeah, I mean that 60,000. It's a little up there for that area. Let me see. What's the condition of the property?
It's in pretty good shape. It was built in 1930, but
Like more
I've
like
had a bathroom put
80,000.
on it. The metal roof is pretty good. I've had some work put into that, so it won't leak. And
1,200 square foot.
the only thing, the walls are painted and everything, but if somebody wanted to change the color, they could. But other than that, it's a pretty good property because I think it was fixed up in the 90s. That was my guess anyway.
I mean, there's properties here. I gotcha. Okay. And then you say you had a quarter acre, or was it 1 acre?
3/4 of an acre.
3/4. Okay. And in regards to the property, what needs to be repaired there? Maybe flooring or kitchen or cabinets? What would you say?
I had some work on the flooring, maybe cosmetically the cabinets. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Has it been updated at all recently?
Uh,
Like the bathrooms or the bedrooms or?
yeah, the bathroom was done before my wife died, and I have a totally new bathroom.
Gotcha. Okay.
It doesn't have the best closets. The master bedroom's got the best closet, but I have 2 rooms upstairs.
I love his
One
accent.
room
Upstairs.
has got
I love that southern accent.
But my other one doesn't have the best closet in it.
I gotcha. I mean, I may be possibly interested in it.
Okay.
Let's see here. I love to do a lot of remodels. Yeah, I would fix it up and bring it up to what folks are looking for these days. You know, the HGTV, everyone wants it, eye candy.
Right. They do. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, for us to come in there all cash, and I do understand you're going to need another property. Would you be buying the other property cash or more like a rental, or what are you looking for?
Oh, it would be cash.
Okay. So we may have to find one according to this one. But
Right.
for us to come in all cash and close quickly based on your timeline, whatever timeline you think fits you best, we probably have to be somewhere in the ballpark of 40,000 in cash.
That's probably what you can
Then
get
you
for
shut
it.
up. Yes, sir. Exactly. Just let
Unfortunately,
'em talk.
the properties around here, I talked to a realtor about 3 months ago or something like that, and she said they weren't going for anything less than 70. So I may have problems selling at that. But I appreciate you.
I gotcha. Yeah. And, I mean, if you're gonna go with the agent route, let's see. Even if they do list it at 70, let's assume that you get a full ask price within your timeline. You're gonna pay 6% commission plus closing costs.
Yeah. Oh, I just talked to her just for talking. I just talked to her just for talking.
Yeah. Now I was gonna do the math, see here what you would end up with.
Right.
You'd probably
And it's hard to sell houses over here.
right.
It just is. Yeah, but 40,000 may be a little bit low for me.
Let me see, because I'm looking at the market. I'm looking for a blueprint property that I can kind of base my remodel off of. but I'm having a little bit of difficulties. Of course, not too many properties move in that market. How much do you think the property would sell for, all fully remodeled?
Fully remodeled.
Yeah, done nice. 140 all day. I see the comps here.
I've seen people ask for about.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of too, because that was my number. And just if you work the numbers backwards from 100, and let's just say, just based off your square footage, we do a lot of remodels. So based off the square footage, I know about 40,000 will get that property to what folks want to buy these days. And so if I'm gonna sell it for 40,000 on the back end, and I put 40,000 into it, or excuse me, if I sell it for 100,000 and I put 40 into it, that brings us down to 60,000. And then let's say I pay you 60, then we're not making any money.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the truth.
So that's where that $40,000 offer comes from. We're only gonna make a couple of dollars on it, but it would at least help you.
Yeah, that's the truth. I'm not super serious about selling unless I can get a little bit more for it. But I thank you for calling me, though.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Yes, sir.
Have a good day, sir.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
We educated him. Literally looked at the comps. This is a tough area. He's like in the boonies, and literally the comps range from 100 to 140, and I'm stretching at 140. I saw one at like 160, 170, but this was like years ago, and so that's not something I want to risk. I'm not in the business of just locking up deals just to lock them up. This is in between Kentucky and Ohio, in the middle of nowhere. Literally, if you zoom out the map and you see Columbus, Cincinnati, Lexington, and Beckley, all the way down here, in the middle of that, you're going to find his small little town. And so